Listen, we celebrate all business owners on this show. The Business Shower Podcast, a space where business owners can shine. Building systems has to be a way of life. Having your own business just never felt so good. It's time to stop relying on 9-to-5s to take care of our families. Shout out to all business owners, because you know what? We are the real managers.
All right, and welcome to the Business Shower Podcast, a podcast for business owners to shine. Today we have Morgan. Morgan, I'm going to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell our listeners who you are and what your company does.
Hey there, Kelly. Thanks so much for having me on today. Really excited to be here on the Business Shower. So I'm Morgan McCoy. If you take a look at the spelling, the pronunciation might not match up with the letters there, but we just ignore that. It's McCoy. And I run Braggin Right, a business that I started a little over a year ago with the sole mission of closing the gender wage gap and helping women and minorities get paid what they're worth.
Okay. So tell us, what inspired you to start this type of business?
Yeah, great question. What inspired me was really rage. And I kind of got into a situation, or I found myself in a situation where my employment was no longer desired with a company that I had been working for at that time. And I all of a sudden found myself looking around going, holy crap, what do I do with myself now? And really, I was in a dark spot. I was really struggling to feel like my value was present. As an American, I often have tied my value to my work. And so if I wasn't working, then where was my value? So really to show myself that I could do anything or do anything when I set my mind to it, I started designing some resume templates out of old resumes that I had written. And I put them on Etsy and they started selling. And then people needed help filling out the resume templates. And then I started leaning on my background in corporate compensation. So I worked as a product manager for 3 years at a pay structure software company where I learned how pay works from a corporate perspective. And through that, I really learned a lot about how we negotiate for pay as employees and how businesses structure their pay practices, and why it is often a confusing black box where both employees and employers are sometimes working from a lack of knowledge. So what I wanted to do even back then was arm people with the knowledge that I had gained through my education and pay practices. And that's what I'm doing now with Braggin Right. While I can help my clients write a kick-ass resume, become a LinkedIn top voice, and negotiate and move through interviews with confidence, what I really consider the jewel in my crown is the pay negotiation work and really empowering women to ask for what they're worth.
Okay. So prior to this, how long were you in HR and recruiting?
Yeah, I was a product manager for about 3 years before I moved into a marketing firm.
Okay. So you went into, so you were in recruiting and then you went into marketing.
So I was never in recruiting. I would say I do more recruiting now through Braggin Right than I had ever done previously. I was really always on the back end of things where I was developing products that structured pay practices.
Okay. So here's one of the questions I wanted to ask you. What are some of your success stories? And if you can tell me 2 of them that have helped individuals get higher paying jobs in a healthier work environment, because I feel like that is, I'm going to say like the number one, my background is still in recruiting, right? So every person that I talk to, that's what their pain point is. They want higher pay and they want a less stressful job. So let's talk about some of those success stories that you've had helping your clients manage that.
Yeah. I'm going to give an example where somebody actually stayed at the same company and one where somebody moved
Okay.
because counter offers are very popular right now. And so that's
Yes.
something that I want to really highlight as well. So
Hmm.
the first example I'm going to give is a client of mine who she worked in GIS systems, which is kind of mapping, using satellites to create maps, working for a business. And she was at a pay rate of about $67,000. And she had been looking for a little while, kind of floating her resume about, and she ended up landing an offer with a business for about $82,000. And she came to me. I had helped her write her resume, and she was like, "Hey, this is a good offer, but I don't know that it's matching my value in the market, and I'm really just curious to see what else we can get." And so we ended up working together to identify what is actually the rate of pay for somebody doing her work in her location, and we found that it was pretty low based on the salary research that we did. And so we together crafted communications, went back to the potential employer or where she had received the offer from, and said, "Hey, this is what I'm seeing in the market, and can you meet it?" And they said yes. They came back with a higher rate of about 89, and that was really, really exciting. But then she came to me and said, "You know, I really like my boss. I like where I work. They have put a lot of effort into training me, and I am wanting to continue to grow with this company, but I really want this pay raise.
Yeah.
And I've seen other people in my company not successfully get counter offers." So I think there's a lot of like hesitancy where she had actually seen team members ask for counter offers and not receive one. So
Mhm.
we took a very tactical and tactful approach, which is a key element to any communication that I practice, where we went to we like wrote an email to her manager, and she went to her manager, and we first like led with gratefulness. That's one of my key tenets, is going and saying, "I have loved working here. You have put so much effort into training me, and because of that effort, I'm actually worth more in the market, and now I have this opportunity because of how much I've grown here, but I really want to keep it in house. Is there room for a counter offer? Are you interested?" And they
Okay.
came back and they said yes. They
Mm.
actually they came back with 93,000 plus a 10K signing bonus. And so she went from 67
Oh.
to almost 100. She had a $30,000 pay raise and ended up staying at her same company,
Mm.
specifically because of her counteroffer and how we negotiated tactfully. So I think that that was a really huge win, and something that really showed me the power of showing up with kindness through negotiations, but also holding your ground.
Yeah.
Like, how
Yeah.
does that story like resonate with you?
I love that story
Yeah.
because it actually gives the listeners, and some of my listeners are small business owners, some of them are still working their 9 to 5, and they may feel like that and they don't know how to go into their company and say, "Hey, listen, you know, I need a raise. This is what I need." And, if not, I might start looking elsewhere. And a lot of companies now, I feel like, are accepting counter offers because they don't want to lose the good quality people that work for them. So, I love that story.
Yeah, you're
Now,
absolutely right.
now tell me about the other person who ended up leaving the company.
Yeah,
Hmm.
great question. So I was working with a client who was recently out of undergrad. So this is a kind of person that I really love working with,
Hmm.
because if you're early on in your career, we really never get taught how to negotiate as adults. Just like we don't really get taught taxes, we never get taught to negotiate.
Nope.
And so I really love working with people who are coming out of kind of like a university experience and are entering the job force for the first time, because I can help educate them on how to negotiate for themselves, and that is something that they're going to carry into their forever, every job they ever negotiate for. And it can have pay has compounding impacts, as we know. So what I did was worked with this client who was actually substitute teaching at the time, but had a background in data analytics and data science. And so we were really looking for data opportunities for them. But I don't know, Kelly, how much data recruiting you've done this year, but things are really tight out there for the data folks. And so what we actually ended up working on together was a pivot from the data science related work into actuarial work. And I actually supported them through taking some tests for the actuarial certification. And what we found was that there was a much larger market availability for them using the same skills, tools, and resources that they had gained, but rather than targeting them to a tech career where the market is fierce right now, we targeted them towards actuarial work where they were actually able to land a role with H&R Block that had a significant pay raise for them, and they were able to let go of the teaching work or the substitute work, which was both like not paying them what they're worth, but also very kind of like stressful. You never know kind of like when you're going to be able to substitute. So it really brought stability to their lives, being able to move into a more this is more kind of like tax related actuarial work rather than sticking with the path of kind of like banging your head against a wall, applying to hundreds of data science roles. So that would be like the second story that I would love to bring up.
Okay. And you know what? I just like to comment. I feel like teachers are very underpaid. Especially, substitute teachers. I hope that changes one day in the future. I really do. I hope it changes. But I'm so glad you were able to help that, that candidate, I call them candidate out or client out to help them get a higher pay, because they really do deserve it. What they go through on a day-to-day basis, you really got to love what you do in order to be a teacher.
Kelly, from your mouth to our legislators' ears. Yes. Our teachers are severely underpaid, and if you're a teacher listening to this, give me a call, because it's hard out there.
Shout out to all the teachers. My best friend is a teacher, and just shout out to all the teachers. We love you. Okay, so back to the interview. So my next question is, can you tell me how your business supports organizations and talent management to improve culture, performance, and profits?
Ooh, I love this question. So I currently work with a organization. I'll shout them out. Easter Seals, Oregon. They are a nonprofit who they're based out of Oregon. So I said that. But they specifically work with senior and veteran populations to align them with employment. So I'm on their their business advisory council, and I serve as both like representative of Braggin Right to support them in understanding kind of like how businesses are looking for talent, but I also do regular resume reviews for them. So they have sometimes 200 or more seniors in the Portland area, or all over Oregon, where they're trying to place these folks into roles where they can both feel valued, and as we know, like having work, having a place to put your energy as a human being, whether you're mature or not, is so important to your continued kind of like mental health and well-being. And being able to be continually paid in this society is a requirement. So I absolutely love the work that I do with Easter Seals. providing them with resume reviews, supporting them on the business advisory council. And some things that we're looking into is how do we actually work with employers on training for the benefits of not just employee retention, but hiring for senior workers or hiring disabled workers or hiring veterans. There are a lot of benefits that come along with these populations, and the studies show that the more diverse a employee pool you have, the more innovative and accelerated your work can be. And so doing that work with Easter Seals has been just really exciting. It feels like the front lines of bias reduction, especially for our mature workers. And that's really a passion of mine.
Okay. And I love that for you. I really do. I, for a short time, I worked with seniors, and it's definitely a big bias. And I understand how they feel, right? Because I'm going to get there one day, and knowing the type of person I am, I'm going to want to continue working.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to be discriminated against because I have 40 something years in the industry.
And it's really scary as like a
is.
woman in particular,
Yes.
the compounding impacts of bias. I don't have to tell you, there is so much pain and lack of confidence from a corporate perspective when it comes to both mature workers and women in particular. And so that's really why doing this work with Braggin Right feels like it's now or never, because it has to happen. We have to change the ways that we think about hiring, the ways that we think about our employees, move to a more skill-based like hiring methodology and promotion methodology, and pay people what they're worth.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So this is going to be jumping over to you personally. So we all know that starting a business can be very tough, right? And even to start a business like you have is even tougher, I would say, right? So in those difficult moments, how do you stay focused and continue to keep going and making progress and, continue to do the work that you usually like you do on a day-to-day basis and that you're good at? How do you keep that mindset and keep going?
This is such a fun question because it's a struggle. Like you Kelly, I don't have to tell you, as a business owner, it is hard. And I find myself going through cycles where it's like, oh, you're excited, it feels easy, and then you hit some kind of wall, or maybe you didn't hit the goal. And as a sole proprietor, you're it. You're the only support that you have. And you might have friends or partners or family who love you and think that you're awesome, but they're not there in the trenches helping you make decisions for your business that really for you feel, as I like to say, when your livelihood is on the line, it feels like your life is on the line. And as a sole proprietor, your life always feels like it's on the line. And I practice like some meditation. That is one thing that has really helped me, is to get up in the morning and really center myself, both through meditation and journaling. I find that when I get my doubts out, when I get my wigglies out in the morning and like do some yoga, and when I wake up and I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to manage this? Then moving my body, going for a walk, taking that second to clear my mind really helps align me to the work for the day. And I'll also say, for me, doing the work of helping clients is what feeds me and drives me on. It's when I'm trying to do the marketing or trying to sell myself or trying to create the umpteenth LinkedIn post and ask myself, like, is this going to resonate with anybody? That I really feel the slog. But when I get to help somebody negotiate and we end up getting to that point of them, being able to make more money, so much more money that maybe they're able to buy a house or they're able to move to their dream location, and really have the life that they want to lead, then those are the moments that feed me and keep me going.
Yeah. Okay. So it's almost like I was listening to this podcast. I don't know what podcast I was listening to the other day, but I was listening to this podcast, and one of the hosts, she got on and she was just like, today I did not feel like getting up, right? This was after the interview. She was like, I did not feel like getting up. I did not feel like recording today. But I'm glad I did, because after I finished recording, I felt so much better. So, and in that statement, I just wanted to say to the listeners out there, sometimes you're not going to feel like it, right? Especially here in Jersey. I don't know how the weather's been in Oregon, but out here it's been rainy, it's been dark, it's been very depressing, right? And there's a such thing as seasonal depression, right?
Yeah.
So when you do feel like that, maybe it will help to just push yourself to do it, or maybe even, like Morgan said, go outside, get some sun, go do some meditation, do something that makes you happy, right? To try to bring you out of that funk and then get back to it. Because I know as business owners, we get into that space and sometimes we don't know what we can do to bring it out. So I just wanted to make that. And is there anything you want to add to that, Morgan?
Yeah, I absolutely will, Kelly. So I'm going to shout out a burnout coach that I actually worked with, Adrienne Alloway, with Energized Millennials. She and I worked together for probably about 6 months, and the shift from the mindset shift of going from like worker to business owner, you're not no longer measuring your successes in the same way, and you're not getting that paycheck. You're not nobody's there to like pat you on the head and tell you that you're doing a good job. And so I really had to learn how to kind of do those things for myself. And also, I think one of the things that solopreneurship has taught me is that even when you show up on your worst day and you don't want to get out of bed, when you do something, you move the ball forward. Or
Yes.
you put that one puzzle piece in, and you don't know what impact just doing that one puzzle piece is going to have on the whole picture. I think it's this like double-edged sword of like also knowing when to like call it a day. That is one thing that we as business owners are not always great at, because it follows you everywhere. It's throughout your life. And so knowing when you can say, actually, I feel like crap today and I'm not going to do my best work. And so I'm going to give myself this morning, this afternoon, this day to go for a walk or do something that brings me joy, so that when I show up tomorrow, I show up in a much better headspace, and it's going to take me 5 minutes to do the thing that would have taken me 90 minutes yesterday.
Absolutely. So I like that so much. And hopefully our listeners are taking some notes out there. So let's get back to the interview. So my next question is, we all know that some common challenges women face are with negotiating salaries and navigating career advancements. So how do you address those challenges? And can you give our listeners some tips on how they can address some of those challenges they might be facing?
Yeah. I'm going to say, so first of all, your imposter syndrome feels real. It is real, but it's tricking you. You're incredible. So that's the like first tip that I want to bring to the table. And I heard from a leader in the game development space a while back. I'll have to send you her name, but she said something that really resonated with me, that the best thing that you can do for somebody is tell them what they do well. And say that to them and give them that gift of telling them what you really appreciate about them and what they excel at. And that is a principle that is really a core tenet to my coaching. So I one of the things that I love about my work now is that I get to shout at people how awesome they are and tell them back to them. And I do it through resume writing. I do it through interview coaching, because really these things are just bragging on themselves, which we know that women in particular are social minded. We are group minded. We are team minded.
Yes.
And we look around and we say, well, everybody did this. Everyone contributed. I see how everyone here is a winner. But that's not the kind of resume that gets you hired, unfortunately. And so that's where I really love to work with women to call out their accomplishments and specifically think about how did you contribute to this situation. So for anybody out there thinking about like documenting their accomplishments, maybe you're working on a brag doc, trying to keep track of all of those things. Keep in mind, like, what was your quantitative impact? And by that, I mean, like, tie a number to your successes. So one thing that's on my resume, for example, right now is that I grew my network 2x in the last year from 500 people on LinkedIn to over 1,000. That is a quantitative number that I can tie to my successes. And we all have those numbers. It's just really hard to do that for yourself and to say like, okay, what was my actual impact here? And the number doesn't have to be correct. This is a number, or this is another thing that I like to share is I like to call these directional numbers, where it's nothing that really anybody is ever going to be able to chase down. The recruiter's never going to know if it was the absolute truth. Your business is never going to know if it was absolute truth. What you're doing is painting a picture, and the picture should tell the vision of the experience that you had, and it should be accurate, but it doesn't have to be kind of like the God's honest 100%, this was the right number. How does that sit with you, Kelly, as a recruiter?
I've already, in my head, I already know that, especially when I'm talking to different candidates and they're telling me certain things about, especially salespeople. I grew my sales by 300%. In my head, I'm already taking probably like 100% off of that 300%. So you really grew it 200%. So that is kind of the way I look at it. But yes, it actually, I agree. And then I also agree with you highlighting a lot of your successes on your resume or even in your cover letter.
Yes.
So you want to kind of highlight that. You don't want to see, what I don't want to do is people to get the wrong idea and they start lying on their resumes.
Right.
Because you're going to be expected to do this job, right? You're going to be expected to do whatever job you're applying for, whether it's a recruiter, whether it's a generalist, whatever the position is, you're going to be expected to do that job. What we're saying as far as, kind of, I don't want to say fabricating, enhancing.
This is why I use the word directional, because
your
it's
resume,
correct,
right?
but
what we're saying is to make sure
it is your
extremely
estimate
big
of sorry, my brain is not the best.
Yes,
the impact you're bringing. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. What we're saying is to make sure that the highlights of your successes are on your resume and kind of like beaming, because I'm going to be honest with you, AI is literally taking over the world. There's going to become a time where there are not going to be recruiters behind the Indeeds and the LinkedIns. Is really going to be like a computer automated system that's just going to be taking buzzwords off of your resume and saying you're a top candidate because of that. So I would definitely say, I always tell people when I'm redoing their resumes is to cater their resume to the job description.
Yes.
Right?
You are
cater it to the job description.
Completely true. Completely right, Kelly. Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell them to cater it to the job description, especially the things that you have done within your career, because some people just give a general view of their resume. No, you should be catering it to the job description. Yeah. So I know that was a long-winded response to your
I'd
question.
love to jump in here for a second
Go
because
ahead.
you brought up AI, and I know that your audience here is specifically business owners, and so I'd love to talk a little bit about like how we're using AI
Yes.
as entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Do you want me to give an example, or would you love to
No,
give an
go
example?
ahead. You brought it up, so I'm gonna
Okay.
let you talk
Let,
about this.
let me run with it.
Go ahead.
So ChatGPT is my absolute best friend. I like to call
Mhm.
it the intern that you have to review everything for first. But it has been such a powerful tool for me to be able to really write that first draft of anything and launch from there. But then I also use tools like Zapier to connect some of my different tools, whether that is Notion to MailChimp or to Google Sheets. And one of the things that I love about Zapier is that they have an AI tool integration builder now where you can type in exactly the kind of thing that you're trying to connect to the other tool and tell it what you want it to do, and it will build an integration map for you just by you like writing that paragraph. And so I think that there are so many ways that AI is already coming into play for business owners. And we're just seeing the beginning. And this is something, as somebody in the job search space, in the advancement space, AI is not going to be a single job. It's going to touch every single job that exists. And I'm curious, Kelly, how are you using AI with the business shower to really take your business to the next level?
Yeah, so I'm definitely using ChatGPT. I love everything about ChatGPT. I don't really use any CRMs, only because I feel like I haven't found the right one to. Like, I have to use multiple CRMs, and that is really it frustrates me. So I am still kind of in search of a good CRM. So if you have any suggestions, or even my listeners have any suggestions, please let me know. For a while, I did use Monday, and I took so much time to set that up and everything like that. But it just wasn't working for what I needed it to work for. So no CRM right now, but I do use ChatGPT. And then I also do have some different automation systems that I use, of course, Calendly. What else do I use? I'm trying to think. I think that's it, really. ChatGPT and Calendly, and then my Google Suite, but that's more techie side of things. But that's it as far as AI is concerned. I'm looking into new AI things that I can use. Oh, well, excuse me. Sorry. The platform that we're on, Riverside, let me shout them out because they have a great integration with AI, literally. So that's another one that I'm using as well.
Yeah. It's like you have a whole extra team of people almost
Yes.
when you use these tools.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And on the like recruiting side of the house, what we know is actually 75% of resumes never make it to a recruiter. That applicant tracking systems sort out resumes before they even get to the recruiter. So that long held like statistic of your resume only gets like 6 seconds with a recruiter's eyes, these days you might not even get those 6 seconds because you're being
Absolutely.
sorted out so early on. So it'll be really fascinating to see, Kelly, to your point earlier, the impacts of AI and how automated the recruiting and interviewing process may become.
Yes, it's definitely going to be very interesting. Okay, so a couple more questions before we wrap up. So my next question is collaboration and partnerships. We know are keys to being a successful business and being a successful business owner. So can you share with me some collaborations and partnerships that you have? I know Oregon, what was it? Oregon.
Easterfield, Oregon.
Yes. That was one of them. But what other collaborations and partnerships do you have?
Yeah, great question. So one of the organizations that is really near and dear to my heart is Out in Tech, and I am actually working on a upcoming series. If anybody's in the Seattle area, a 3-month series focused on moving through the job search process. So starting with the first session will be on like discovering what the next right career step for you might be. The second session is going to be on lifting your LinkedIn, how to become a top voice, how to network with people, how to overcome your imposter syndrome when it's like, I'm messaging this person into the void and that's scary. It is scary, but what we know is that you have to cut through the noise of someone's life, and you reaching out is really like a powerful tool, and you kind of have to have the tenacity to keep trying.
Yeah.
That's something business ownership has really taught me. And then the third series will be specifically, or this third event will specifically be on negotiation, pay negotiation, and how to negotiate for yourself powerfully in a tech role. So I'm really looking forward to that. And both the Out in Tech national chapter and some of the more local chapters have been just huge supporters of mine. And I love to shout them out back because that's one community that is really there for a minority group where people are really underrepresented. So looking for other partnerships, chatting with a couple of other groups as well. Kelly, are there any partnerships that I should be working on in your mind?
I can't really speak for your state. Um, I can only really speak for New Jersey. And that's bad because I really should be able to speak worldwide, right? But maybe some women's organizations. I know you mentioned the veterans, and then your upcoming event that's coming up in Oregon. But is there any small business women's associations that you can reach out to in your area?
Yeah, that's a really great idea. So, if anybody listening is part of an ERG or a professional organization that would love to have a speaker on the topic of pay negotiation or career advancement in general, feel free to reach out to me.
Yes, awesome. And we'll put all this information in the show notes so that you guys know where to reach out to her um, for those guest opportunities. Um, okay, so my question that I ask everyone on this show, right? This is kind of the go-to question for the business shower. So, what is your biggest? We're gonna call it a failure, even though we know it's more like a life lesson, right? What did you learn from it? And what would you do differently, if any?
Do you mind saying that one more time for me, Kelly? Sorry, you like lagged for a second.
Yeah. No problem. I said, what's your biggest failure? What did you learn from it? And what would you change, if anything?
Yeah, great question. I knew you were going to ask me this after listening to some of your other podcasts, and I've been thinking about it because I've really been struggling, or maybe struggle isn't quite the right word, but trying to change my perception on like what failure is. Because as a business owner, you don't really get to fail, or failure is when you quit. And that is a perception that I'm really trying to embody these days, because when I look back on my life at something that I might have considered my biggest failure, which was being pipped at the previous tech company that I worked for, where I chose to exit instead of move forward with that pip. I considered that my biggest failure at the time. But if that hadn't have happened, Braggin Right would not exist, and I would not have helped the hundreds of people to empower themselves to negotiate for themselves, and be averaging, helping people add an extra like $25,000 per offer, which is the kind of like statistics that I'm working off of right now, where I am helping women make more money. I am working to close that gender wage gap. These were all things that for my entire life, I thought were problems that were too big to solve. And I think as business owners, we get to throw ourselves at really dynamic, complex, possibly unsolvable problems. And that when one person tries to solve, when other people see someone trying to solve an unsolvable problem, it suddenly becomes more solvable, and inspires other people to solve unsolvable problems. And I am just so overjoyed at the work that I get to do, at both being able to captain my own destiny, but also have an incredible impact and make a living doing that. Because when I talk to folks, when I talk to job seekers, you know, what everybody wants is to feel valued and to feel like they are making an impact in the world. And so at this point, it took a year, but I feel grateful for that failure, as we might call it, because I wouldn't be thriving otherwise.
Yeah. And that's always what I like to get at when I'm asking that question, is just to inspire, the business owners that do listen to my podcast, or even the inspiring business owners that listen to my podcast. It doesn't matter how long you take to get there. What matters is that you get there, and every day you're taking little steps towards getting there. So many influencers, so many, things you'll see on social media. That's just not true. What they're not showing you is what they went through to get there. They're just showing you, I'm here. And, a small little picture of how I got there, but that's not always the case, right? Don't you agree, Morgan? They
Oh,
don't
I
really
so
show
agree.
the the nitty gritty and the dirty stuff that they have to go through to get where they are.
Yeah, the sleepless nights, the sweatpants, the
Yep,
haven't showered in 4 days,
exactly.
the hard times, and
Yeah,
they're real. And you get to have the highlight reel because of the hard times, and it's really up to you to show up and decide how you show up. There is a mantra called work ethic. No, it's worth ethic. Excuse me, worth ethic that I would love to share with you.
yes.
Just give me 1 second. I will
Mhm.
pull this up. Okay, so it's Tony Jones, and you can find it on Spotify. It's called Worth Ethic, and this is a mantra that I listen to on an almost daily basis.
Okay.
And one of my favorite phrases is, I own my business, it doesn't own me. And
Mm-hmm.
as a business owner, I think that's something maybe, Kelly, you can identify with, of sometimes
Yes.
it gets away from you. And
Yes.
so being able to set some boundaries even with yourself, and move through those hard times, and go back to those wins and accomplishments that we were talking about earlier,
Yep.
really helps you to move forward, get up off the couch, and maybe like put that mascara on or put your earrings on, as my mother would like to say,
Mm-hmm.
and go out there and crush it.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm gonna put that in the show notes, guys. So you should see it down below in the show notes. Oh my God, Morgan, this was such a good conversation. So what does the future look like for bragging rights?
Yeah, great question. I, the sky's the limit for Braggin Right, and it took me, frankly, a long time to realize that. I entered into this work, really trying to like prove something to myself, and then along the way discovered that I had a world-changing idea. And I think that as an entrepreneur, you have to give yourself the space to realize that. And so, coming up next, we are going to be doing more partnerships. I'm going to be doing more educating, and I'm going to be working with more clients, specifically in the salary negotiation stage of their job search. So, one service that I am really pulling forward right now is my white glove salary negotiation service, where I'm supporting people from the moment they get an offer to the moment that they sign on the dotted line, to be in lockstep with people to ensure that they're not just supported with real salary data to know exactly what they are worth in the market, but be an empowerment mentor when their imposter syndrome speaks up, and really, really say, like, no, hold the line. Like you're worth this. And we know that explicitly because of XYZ thing. And we did the data research and we know it. And to be tactful in our negotiation, but also powerful in our stance. And I'm really excited to get to help more people make more money and live the lives that they want.
Okay. Awesome. So let our listeners know where they can find you if they need to contact you, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who listen to our podcast that would want you to take them on as clients. So let our listeners know how they can find you.
Yeah, check us out at bragginright.com. So that is BRAGGINRIGHT.com. And you can schedule a 20-minute free consultation with me right from that website. I will review resumes. I will give interview feedback. Wherever you're at, whatever moment of career transition or advancement you are in, I can react quickly with you and give you that little extra boost. So even if you're not looking for coaching and you just want to have a conversation with a professional who is not your mom or Reddit to work through something, that's why I'm here.
I love the Reddit comment, because you don't know how many times a day I run to Reddit when it comes to situations with my dog. Can you help with that? Because she's always eating something.
Kelly, you're absolutely right. Like, this is why I started Braggin Right. And I'm just shaking my fists now, because as employees, unless you're in a union, you really don't have recourse. There is no support. And that enraged me for many reasons. Yeah. So much so that I started a business to be that support system for folks who aren't in a union setting and want somebody to talk to about their advancement who isn't their boss.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for starting this business. Thank you for being a guest on my podcast. And thank you for dropping so many gems today to our listeners.
Yeah, well, Kelly, thank you for running the business shower. You've had so many powerful humans on this show, and you're out there spitting truths. And one thing I even want to call in, you would ask somebody else about, like, did they have an education in business? Like, did they get an MBA? Like, did they go to school for this? And I wanted to shout out, like, I didn't go to school for this. You know, I started this business because I had gumption and an idea, and that's all you need. So to anybody out there who wants to start their own business, the best thing you can do is get started.
Exactly. I say that all the time. You know, you don't need a degree for everything.
Yep.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much. And until next time, listeners, peace.
Bye.